And now, recording in front of absolutely nobody in their subterranean recording studio deep in the bowels of the Cigar Club of Indiana, it's time for the Five Stones Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Five Stones Podcast. I am Raymond Modulin, aka the Real Estate Monkey, and as usual, my two esteemed guests with me.
Mr. Good morning. I'm Colin Hedegaard. I'm known as the Great Dane.
I am Joe Trester, and I am the Real Estate Advocate.
So today we're going to take a little departure from what we actually had planned. It's not too big of a departure for us. Because it does deal in the real estate world. But from what we actually had got together and planned on, Colin, go ahead and give me that statistic one more time, please.
I was just hearing from some local real estate agents on Reels that the cities of Austin and Tampa and a few others have had more price reductions on their listings in the last 30 days. About 35% of the listings in Tampa was the number one city with price drops.
So 1 out of 3 homes have lowered their listing price. So this is how we start the downward spiral. Because let's assume 1 out of 3 houses, now those sell at a price that was reduced. Those are going to be comps for future sales that are going to start spinning that downward loss, right?
Yes.
So with the lawsuit that's going on, and I don't want to get into that, we beat that to death. I believe, and Joe, you might be able to find that we actually talked about 4 to 6 months ago, a reduction in home values of about 10 to 15%. We called that on this show 6 months ago, that there would be a loss in value of homes over this. Now, it's not over just the lawsuit, so let me clarify that. There's a lot of other things that are contributing, but basically, how do I say this? We were right.
Excuse me. Yeah, I heard that over the last few days on Reels. I've been seeing the same kind of message that everyone's wondering, what does it mean? And I mean, I think many people know what it means, but it could, maybe they were overpricing them. Like you make a point often, I think, that if you don't price a house correctly, it's not going to sell. So you have to reduce the price to get the activity that you want. But it must be an unusual data point.
I don't believe it's unusual. I think it's going to be the norm here in the next 6 to 12 to 18 months that you are going to see a reduction in prices. If that's for me, man, I'm not here.
I'll call you back.
I think that people are getting more savvy. That's what I think. I think the buyers are getting a little more savvy. They're on to a few things, and they are less willing to take a chance. Like we are starting to see the polarization of what we went through during the COVID time of things. So like COVID, when we were selling houses and listing houses during COVID, it was insane the amount of money you would get and everything else, and people were spending all kinds of stuff. And now we have come out of it so far the other way, and people are holding on to money and everything else. It's the polar opposite of what we were dealing with there. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if we see prices come down another 10 to 12% from what we're talking about in these statistics right now.
I think the people are just more broke, to be honest with you. We're starting to get the calls of people that have 30, 50,000 in credit card debt. They want to refinance their house and, not the best of terms as compared to what their current mortgage is, but they need bailed out. So they aren't changing their lifestyle from the COVID times when people had money and everything was good. They're still living the same lifestyle, but they're living it on their credit cards, and now the bills coming due.
That's going to catch up to them. But the other thing is we've noticed that there's still transactions going on, but it's a lot less of the I want to move transactions as compared to the I have to move. Job transfer, family status change. I mean, you guys know my wife recently has retired, and I have been given the green light for us to actually look for another home as well. But I can afford to be a lot more picky now because I don't have to move, So trying to find that right home value, that right home location, the amenities. And I think I'm probably one of the prime examples of in 2020, we'd have probably moved like that, But now you've got to think about, well, hell, my interest rate at the current house is 3.1. Now it's going to be at least double that. So I've got to get half the house that I've got to maintain basically the same house payment, or my house payment's going to double. So I'm not in a big hurry to move.
Of our pre-approved clients right now at Five Stones Mortgage, I would say that almost all of them are first-time home buyers or people that have to move, like what you're describing. Not necessarily have to, but they've got more kids coming. They've got situation that they need another bedroom or whatever. So that it's those kind of people are the ones.
Yeah, or less kids like us. All the kids now gone and out. And now we've got a 4 or 5 bedroom house with just she and I. So 4 years ago, we'd have moved on a dime. Now we just don't necessarily need to. So I think Joe's right. Buyers are becoming maybe savvy is not the word I would have used. I'd have used probably more guarded or protected. They're just not willy-nilly going out and buying a new home. Now it is a dedicated reason to do that.
Our home neighborhood, there's not a lot of houses in there, so there's not a lot for sale. But over the last 4 years, everything that has been listed sold very quickly. And now there's been one house sat on the market, I think, for 30 days, and there's another one listed for a week that's below 300,000.
Yeah.
An old widow passed away, and it needs some work, but they have a price to the point where there's not really money to be made to flip it, to update it and flip it. So somebody's going to buy it to live in it, but it's been sitting. So that's just something that hasn't happened for the last 4 years that a home would sit for that period of time.
Well, one of the big metrics that Joe knows that we always measured used to be days on the market. And in 2021, 22, it was actually measured in hours on the market. The NAR will tell you they like anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks of inventory, 3 to 4 months maybe. We were days of inventory, 4 or 5 days on the market. And now I think it has gone up to over 30 days, at least in our metro area. We're up over 30 days on the market. So that one statistic alone can tell you that there is a slowdown in the market. Now, is that slowdown come from? There's also an ancillary reason that slowdown could come from. We all know in this business that there are a lot of people listing at homes way higher than they think it's worth because they're still living in 2022 where people were paying 40 grand over. So they are probably overpriced. That's why they're staying in the market longer. So it could be a combination of not enough buyers, but it also could be the seller's fault in that, oh, geez, I'll throw it out there for 500,000, knowing it's only worth 400. But if someone's dumb enough, like they were 2 years ago, to overpay, but now they're not. So now you see this house on the market, and then you see this glorious reduced $50,000. Well, yeah, but it was overpriced to begin with when you listed it originally.
That the last few years has been the anomaly. We're actually still not quite to a normal market, are we? We're just improve. We're moving more towards a normal market. The 3% interest rates and the crazy quick sales, that was the anomaly, really.
I think we're moving more towards the normal market of interest rates. It would be great, maybe, Joe, if you could put a clip or a link somewhere in down below to that video that we watched where the guy was talking about the average interest rate in the 80s versus the average interest rate now, but home prices in the 80s versus home prices in the 2020. You know, in the 80s, a home was 2 times a person's annual salary. Now home prices, what'd you say, Colin, 4.5 to 5 times?
Mhm.
Yeah, the average home is about 4.5 or 5 times the average salary. So if it's a big difference in affordability.
Yeah.
So no matter what you do with interest rates, the price of the house is more of a structural component for what the monthly payment and which can afford. It's more of a factor than the interest rate because you're paying $400,000 for the house that used to be 2 times income. So theoretically, it would be 200,000 40
Yeah.
years ago.
Well, the other thing that I am seeing in the market is obviously you have new home builders that are giving them incentives as far as lower rates or doing some things to get people to do that. But existing houses that have been, let's say, for example, Colin, that house that you're talking about in your neighborhood where they went to market and they can't sell it because it's dated. People aren't buying the dated things because if they're getting in there, they're not going to have the money to turn it into something that isn't dated. Those people, if they would put $35,000 or $40,000 into making it more modern, would probably sell it much quicker because all of the work's done. Like
Yeah.
people are willing to pay a little bit more on the mortgage, but they can't pay more on the mortgage and then walk in the door and have $50,000 or $60,000 to make it not look like a time capsule from 1967. So there's a lot of that now where people are not willing to put the money into the improvements because they don't have the extra money to do it. But if it's improved before they get to it, it'll sell pretty quick too.
The cost of those renovations is another victim of inflation as well. Construction materials is brutal, and finding contractors that will show up and
Mhm.
they're pricing jobs that almost in the price they don't want to do it because they just have too much work. Many of them, the good ones, do. So yeah, you can no longer come in and do a kitchen on a budget for 12 or 15,000. I mean, you're talking about 40, 30, 40, $50,000 for a kitchen, 10, 15 for bathroom. So the
Well,
cost of construction and materials is through the roof too.
Joe's right. I think one of the other issues, we always talk about houses in the terms of cars because we seem to understand that people are wanting to sell their 1987 car at a 2020 price. And Joe's working with a client right now who actually was smart enough to understand that they went through the process of putting new flooring in. I mean, they live in a dated house because they've lived there for a while. It's not that they were bad people. They just have lived in the house for a while when it was popular. So before they even put it on the market, they went through and put new carpets in, new flooring. They've redone some kitchen, some basement work to try and make sure that they can maximize their price. It's the people like Joe saying that dated time capsule where they don't want to do anything to it, but yet they still want to try and get brand new car prices out of it.
Well, and then 4 years ago, they would have gotten those prices because people had enough money laying around that they could buy the house and then customize it and clean it up and do what they wanted. But they don't, they either have enough money to put down the down payment and get the mortgage, or they have enough money to fix it. They don't have enough money to do both.
And unfortunately, here is something that I have said for years, and it has garnered me a lot of unfavorable views from people. There's really only one reason your house doesn't sell. It's overpriced, period. Now, you could come in and go, well, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't matter. It's overpriced for that house. and the market will tell you that. If that house is sitting on the market in your neighborhood, Colin, for 30 days or 40 or 50 or 2 months, it's overpriced. Someone will pay for it, but like Joe's saying, they're going to pay 1997 car prices and then have to rehab it to bring it to here. So the market will tell you it, but I'm telling you, there's only one reason: it's overpriced. Period.
And we run into that issue a lot with people that'll over improve and then overprice the house to compensate as well. Like there's a level at which you need to know the market well enough to know how much you can do and still sell it where you need to sell it, as opposed to doing this and this and this and this. And then the next thing you know, you have potentially the most expensive house on the block, which is also, that is as difficult to sell as the cheapest one on the block.
So that's why people need to.
I contend it's the hardest one to sell.
People need to consult one of you real estate professionals so you can explain to them, hey, making these improvements bring you to the top of the range, but the top of the range is here.
Yeah. That's one of the largest misconceptions. Like Joe's saying, people are going to go in and go, well, I'll put ceramic tile and one of those full body showers and stainless steel appliances. And you're like, no, dude, it's still a 3-bedroom house. It's now not valued $20,000 more because
clean, functional.
Yeah.
That's what you need.
We had a client that did exactly what Joe was saying. Bought a property in a neighborhood that is going through regentrification. Unfortunately, they're a little early and they spent a bunch of money to make it very nice. They made it too nice, and now the price is $100,000 higher than all of the surrounding properties. And I contend, Joe, that when people tell you I've got the best house in the neighborhood, great. You just told me you had the hardest house to sell, because the two hardest homes to sell are the worst house and the best house. And the worst house will sell before, because you will get somebody that goes, well, I'll buy that and rehab it and make it worth more. When it's the best house, they can't do anything and they bought at the top of the market. Mm-hmm. So those are the worst houses. So it's interesting that we're starting to see these on the coast, and anybody that lives in the Midwest knows whatever happens, usually in the real estate world, whatever happens on the coast will eventually get to us. Short sales, hyperinflation, house price rising, always happen. You see it on the East Coast, West Coast, then it moves in towards middle America. So you're going to start to see that here too.
I heard the explanations for Austin, Texas, having price drops. That was like the number 2 city, and they were more things. They're totally out of control of the citizens of the town. It was Tesla was going to come in and build a factory, and they put that on hold. And then somebody else was going to come and increase the jobs by a huge amount of high-end jobs. And there was a lot of, I think, speculation of those things going on for a period of time, and home prices went straight up. And it's now some of those factors have gone away. They're not going to happen, and then maybe it's leveling off.
Yeah.
They explain them away and there are factors now. And I think those things happen more often now, because the city might all of a sudden say, hey, we're getting Oracle, or we're getting this, or Tesla. And if that happens, it's a boom town. And if it doesn't happen, it's a bust.
Well, isn't Austin also a blue city?
It is the blue city of, there's a couple now, but yeah, Texas is.
Yeah. So
got the full spectrum.
I don't think we need to delve into that any further. I think that pretty much says it for itself. Well, gentlemen, what are you smoking today, Joe? I haven't seen anything. I'm back to my usual New World.
This is a Brioso, which actually is just a decent $5 cigar that I found.
Yeah.
So,
Colin?
CAO. I'm just about done with this one, so
you going into the CA?
Move into a CAO.
I probably need to do more like Joe. I will say that Joe is very eclectic in his taste and tends to get around. where I'm more like Joe calls me the cigar monogamist. I wish I was more like you, Joe, and would be willing to try that. But
Well, I just figure that it can't be so bad that I can't smoke it. So
yes,
Variety is
Yes,
the
it
spice of
can.
life.
yes, it can. Or it could be like the guy that Colin and I saw on the golf course. Actually, the two guys we saw on the golf course this last week that were sharing a cigar.
yeah,
That's just
no
not
bueno.
right.
One would smoke it and hand it to the buddy, and the buddy would take it and then he would smoke it. And
Even a chewed up nub like this.
yeah,
I mean, it was
I
troubling.
told Colin, I said, Colin, I love you, Colin, but we're never sharing a cigar.
You're not supposed to lady and tramp a cigar. Just saying.
Yeah, there is none of that going to happen. I would rather not have a cigar than have to take the one that Colin has in his hand right now, which they did. And they did it multiple times. It wasn't like it was an accident where, like, oh, let me hold this. And he just nonchalantly took the drag off. It was throughout the entire 18, they shared multiple cigars. So, not sure, but that ain't going to happen.
I know it's wrong. I'm sure.
Yeah.
They probably had a 6 or 8 stroke handicap too, right?
Yeah, 6, 8. Well, apparently, it's the same thing for some people.
Hold on. Who am I?
Yeah. All right. Gentlemen, any last comments? I want to thank you guys for joining me again today.
No, just stick with it. We are coming up on our anniversary. I think it'll be our second anniversary in this format, almost third anniversary from the year that we did the radio and then went to this. So should be interesting. We'll be getting back around to recapping some things we talked about pretty soon.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We're anxious to talk about some new things. The NAR lawsuit's been beaten up, and I'm anxious to see what's going on with housing over the next few months. So,
if you'd like to be a guest on the show, go ahead and put it in the comments down below, and our producer will get to you. Also, remember, push the bell and hit the subscribe button. That helps us gain some traction and figure out some of our statistics. So it helps us help you. All right. Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much and have a good day. I'll talk to you later.
Harumph.